echo was, but it's not going to matter. Kirk on the flank finds it down onto one. Riot's already down, so it's a technical 1 versus 2. And Bri just swung to his stick. Whistler on the top floor will look to retrieve their teammate, but a Kirk can find the timing and clutch it out. An ace for Kirk.
But Spider still gets a kill, and then Xer not ready for in the corner, but oh my goodness, he gets the kill anyways! He gets the kill, Teddy left alive. He does it yet again for Mirage! He gets low on health, especially when the Vulcan canisters are in play, but now Ambi low as well, but he takes the kill anyways! He's still left, but with 15 seconds and not too much intel as to where they are, it's not looking great for him, but he's just got the isolated frag on an aim key, and the last one's left in Freezer. This could be a very easy pick to find if he just looks in the right corners with the shotgun as well. He'll be lethal in the close range. A 1-on-2 for the Gridlock.
The race to the finish is upon us. It's the final playoff push here in XGS season number 7 as we're in Playday number 7. My name's Navikul, joined by Irish. And Irish, it's been a crazy season thus far, but I've got a feeling today might get a little bit crazier.
Yeah, no, we've got a lot of teams performing well above expectations and some kind of falling quite a bit behind our expectations. Fluffy AIMERS and SSG Academy are kind of right where we expected them. They're, again, like you were talking about previously and like you alluded to, both of these teams are close to securing their plans and close to securing possibly just a straight up into the into the bracket stage given this game's result.
Well, let's take a look at the standings for Group A and just see kind of where things shake out after 6 days of play. Right now, no surprise, Makers sit at a flawless record up at first place. SSG Academy right behind them, and Mormon Battalion as well have kind of made a little bit of a resurgence. They started out slow, but they're starting to find their footing. The only bad news for them is they've already played 5 out of their 6 matches, so it might be a little bit too late for them. The only good news as well is if you just look at the overall standings for Mormon Battalion is it's a lot more of a top-heavy group, so there is a potential chance for them to still secure this 3rd place spot, but Fluffy AIMERS are looking to knock them down a little bit today.
Yeah, no, with a straight up win, they could jump up all the way. I mean, depending on the round count, they could jump up to 2nd in this very game, because if they win even just like 3 more rounds in SSG Academy, that's -3 for SSG Academy, +3 for Fluffy AIMERS. They get themselves onto 3-0, and suddenly they're all the way up at the top, fighting Makers for that top spot in Group A. Again, like you were talking about, this group is a little bit more top-heavy, so teams like Final Form and like Sesh fighting against such strong teams as Makers, SSG Academy, and Fluffy AIMERS, they've kind of fallen a little bit towards the bottom of that table. As we move on to Group B, this is a lot more even of a group comparatively, with Unks at the top and Karn & Co at the bottom.
Yeah, Unks are the first team to actually secure themselves into the playoff phase of Season 7. Thrive looking to do that as well today if they can pick up a win in our 2nd or 5th matchup of the night. Karn & Co, like you were saying as well just a moment ago, have had a bit of a rough result so far, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're experimenting with new roster changes right now. They're trying to build some chemistry, and it's taking them a little bit longer than you might have thought it might have taken them to actually figure out what they want to do as a team.
I mean, it is new players, and yeah, they're getting Vert and they're getting Rice, but Nick is one of those players that previously was on Karn & Co before, so seeing them in a position with the strength of players that they have, as well as having a little bit of team cohesion from previous versions of Karn & Co, is a little bit strange. Again, this is just talking about teams throughout the bracket stage. Going back to our matchup for tonight, I think this is going to be an absolute banger because I casted Fluffy AIMERS in the grand final of your league of BGS, and they looked absolutely incredible, even with a stand-in of Ampty for Resided.
Yeah, we'll take a look at SSG ACAD first, however, and take a look at who's actually playing for them tonight. There is one big absence worth noting. JetCon is making his return back to the roster after stepping away to focus on school, in place of Bae, who is absent for unknown reasons tonight. But looking at this team as a whole, they've been a fairly strong team. They had a really good result in Element, fell a little bit short once again, but still, they went toe-to-toe with some of those Tier 1 teams and looked very strong. But more importantly so, their attacks have really been the thing that has been shining for them.
Yeah, seeing a win rate of close to 70% for SSG Academy is kind of insane. It's not, you know, back in this super defensive meta, so it's not completely out of the ordinary, but for SSG Academy having a strength of being able to push sites and being able to play attack, even against, slightly nerfed defenders of Azami and Solus and Fenrir of the most recent patch, that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I was looking through the overall stats for this season, and right now, attack and defense sits right about 50-50 for every single map. So having a team like SSG ACAD with a 70% almost attacking win rate, that's really good. That's well above what you would expect from both teams, and that has really been the thing that has set them apart. But we got to talk about their opponents of Fluffy AIMERS, and like you were talking about, over the last couple weeks, they've made some changes, dropping players like Bryce and like Nick, but Recited and Emilio have come into this team, and they fit the mold that JJ has been wanting to build beautifully, and they've really soared because of it.
Yeah, Fluffy Aimers and JJ's teams just in general are kind of those places where it's JJ, he picks up a player, you're like, oh, Emilio, yeah, I remember seeing him on Wildcard Aces, he was pretty good. And then he slots into the system and you're like, oh wow, I did not realize Emilio was this good. And just previously in the Rival and Deity pickups, Deity and Rival in their short time on Fluffy Aimers thus far have grown into fantastic players. I would look out for both of those players because they'll have rounds where they will just completely take over, and on the defensive side win rate you can kind of see that not up to that 69-70% that we saw out of SSG ACAD, but having such a high defending win rate really shows that the strength of individual plays from these players are quite high.
I'm really excited to see these two teams clash up here as we've got our bans coming in. Nighthaven and Bank off the board first. Bank is no surprise there. Fluffy Hammers hate playing that map. They get rid of that first. Following through, Cafe will not be played in our first matchup today. That's really exciting. That's been a map that we've seen all the time. Layer nearly made it through Irish. We almost got our first Layer play of the season, but we go back to Clubhouse, which is once again a very even map in terms of win rate for both sides. And it is also the second most played map in this season. So we have a lot of data to go off of with that. And I think this will be a really good battleground for these teams.
Yeah, no, we were kind of talking about it as bands were going through on the prod side. Like, you were like, I really don't want it to be Lair because I want to know what the heck is going on. Because Lair, new to the comp pool, we haven't seen it in Tier 1, we haven't seen it in Tier 2, we have not seen it really anywhere. It's a great map, personally, in my opinion, but on a map like Clubhouse, everyone's going to know exactly what's going on constantly. You're not really going to get tripped up, and you're very clearly going to see which one of these teams is stronger right out of the gate.
That ban phase really was interesting overall because SSG had a plethora of maps that they like to ban really commonly. Like Nighthaven is a ban that they like to do, and that one makes sense specifically because, like we saw back in My League Blitz's Grand Final, that was a map that Fluffy Aimers proved to be really inept at. They were so good, especially on the defensive side, at shutting down what Aerial Rise in that matchup wanted to do. And I think it made a lot of sense for them to get rid of that first. But we are ready to get into the game. Like you were saying, it's a Titan matchup here. The defensive stronghold of Fluffy Aimers and the attacking masterclass that SSG Academy can put on are going to take their fight into Clubhouse. What are we thinking for bans here? Are we thinking it'll be stock standard or could it be a little crazy?
Again, just going back to that BGS Grand Finals, Fluffy Aimers has shown a lot of ability to kind of adapt to the enemy team in, as far as specifically attacking bans. And with that Dokkaebi off the board, that's kind of the only attacking operator that you can consistently see banned out map after map. So for Fluffy Aimers, I don't think it's going to be a stock standard kind of Monty ban, because JJ is absolutely incredible at Monty. So yeah, you ban out Grim, be able to hold Rafters a little bit better on the defense, and also, again, with the Monty play and being as good with that operator as they are, you can kind of just take Rafters regardless on their attacking side.
I really do like that Grim ban. I think there's a lot of different areas on the map where a Grim can negate some of those defensive strongholds that you see, like the generator box downstairs, like Arsenal as well. There's a lot of different powerful areas that you can hold. Decayed ban as well makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of hatches that you have to worry about in the basement. It makes it a lot easier to open something like Garage, and it means you don't necessarily have to commit to bring something like a Thatcher. You can maybe bring out a Maverick, maybe bring out some operators that have impact EMPs. It really frees up some of those different operator compositions, and that ban as well makes a ton of sense. You want to make it as easy as possible if you're on the attack to open up some of those walls like I was just talking about. and removing arguably the strongest combination of operators that can hold those reinforced walls closed makes a lot of sense.
And yeah, specifically, again, going back to that kind of grim ban, it points to the fact that fluffy aimers have a lot of other tools at their disposal. They're very comfortable on, again, like I was talking about the Monty. It was the main thing that I talked about during that grand final was the fact that JJ was just so much better compared to even they were going up against Poison, who you kind of traditionally think, oh, hard support IGL Monty players, Poison is up there as far as the first kind of people that you think of, but JJ was just absolutely better, and his team could shut down the Monty on their defensive side. So saying, no, we don't need the Grim, we don't need anything else, but we're going to keep up the Monty, I think could potentially be something that could hurt SSG ACAD going into their defensive half, and that's where we're going to start.
I feel like SSG ACAD have to go for a strong start here, because if they slip up in the first couple rounds or so by leaving the Monty on the board, you really could start to see Fluffy Aimers build some momentum, and that's something that you cannot afford to have happen, especially because, like we talked about, Fluffy Aimers are so good when they get on their defensive side, and if they can build off a strong start, or even really a strong second half of their attacks, leading into their defenses, they could start to run away with this. I think you and I both expect this to be a very close 7-5 type of matchup, maybe even overtime, but like I was saying, if Fluffy Aimers get on a roll, they build confidence. And if they can build confidence, their guns become increasingly more active. And that's just going to be a problem that SSG ACAT, I'm not sure will be able to contend with.
And especially with a substituted player. They've played with JetCon before, but not having your full five, not having an absolute full roster can definitely be a detriment, even if you are very comfortable with the person who's subbing in. We do have a little bit of a technical issue behind the scenes. That's why we kind of gone back to both of our lovely faces, but I know that you're very eager to get into the game because I know that I am as well.
Yeah, I most definitely am. I hate when we have to wait so long, especially when it's like this matchup of so many names that you recognize going head to head again. Like, it's always so much anticipation, especially when we get to the later portions of a season with so much on the line here, like you and I were talking about. SSG ACAD, if they can win here in regulation, they pretty much all but guarantee themselves a spot in playoffs, not even the play-ins. Playoffs as a whole. Fluffy Aimers, however, are looking to keep the score tight. So if they can get a win here in regulation, they can actually jump SSG ACAD in the standings and put themselves in great position to secure one of those top 3 seeds. And that would mean they get some extra time off not having to play that play-in matchup, and they can study their opponents and prepare themselves, for playoffs, which will have a lot on the line because like there's so many good teams in this event, and if you start off slow, if you're not doing your homework, then you could find yourself going home early.
It's a very odd operator lineup that we see out of SSG Academy. It's kind of like a half SSG roam, half playing for traps and playing for kills. That opening spawn peak is not going to go JetCon's way though. And that early aggression is not quite going to work out as far as a kill. But again, SSG Academy is just all over the building. They don't have the castle or other operators to kind of set up those extensions, but they have the Azami, and they have a slippery lineup to be able to fall back to site if they absolutely need to.
Well, initially, Fluffy Aimers are taking things relatively slow to this point. They're just now starting to get some drone work going in over towards Stock and over towards Lounge. Bad news is that JetCon's here and ready to greet them, just inside of Lounge itself, but he will be quickly killed through the server rack, or not the server rack, rather the stock rack. But Mike W will regress up the secret staircase, trying to find a response on that. Nobody from Fluffy Aimers is ready and peeking themselves, however. And DD actually will kill Mike W, so now a great start to Fluffy Aimers gets even better, as they've pretty much killed and shut down all of the blue pressure. The only problem is, Bill is still sitting here ratting inside of Garage, looking to potentially cause a flank and maybe see if he can't catch that player on the secret stairs off guard.
And they have yellow ping, so they still have cams up on the secret position. He's going to be caught completely unaware, and a C4 and a Capcan trap is going to give SSG Academy all of a sudden the main advantage. But Fluffy Aimers decide to send into the site. Rebel gets one, he gets down. It's going to be just JJ in a 1 versus 2 to take site and get plant down for his team.
It's getting lit up, however, by Jabates, and it will be Jabates to end out round number 1 with a very nice comeback from a 5v3 for SSG Academy. Well-timed aggression there from the Vigil really was the deciding factor in that round. They did not do their homework, did Fluffy Gamers. They did not send in the drones to all the different areas that they needed to, and they paid the price for it.
But the problem really was they sent drones in for the kill, and they ended up getting the first 2 opening picks and thought, oh, this is fantastic. This is all that we need. They're going to be dropped back towards site. They're going to play a lot more passively, and they're not going to have the ability to get active on us. This is fantastic. We're 2 up on them. We can just set up our execute. But the yellow pings were still coming through for SSG Academy. The flanks were still set up, and the C4s still came ringing true because when it came down to it, SSG Academy droned out the bodies, but they didn't drone out the util. So one dies to a cap can trap, another dies to a C4, and a third to a flank that's assisted by a Valkyrie camera that's left completely unchecked. For Fluffy AIMERS, the drones are fine as far as finding opening picks and finding bodies, but you really also need to drone out the utility.
5 seconds to insertion.
They should be able to have a little bit more success with that here because they can kind of drone and focus on that top floor. They don't necessarily have to take too much control down below. Now, sure, you might want to drone out Garage and see if you can't kill Jabates early on in the round, but other than that, you can really just focus your efforts over towards the CCTV and cache side of the map, and also over towards Garage as well. Or not necessarily Garage, but rather Logi as well, as you try to work your way in there. An initial drone work is coming in here from Fluffy AIMERS. They've spotted out Jabates over on Raptors, but he's just wasting time here, getting rid of so much utility for the attack. He's got some Kiva barricades to make it even harder for them to kill him. This is going to be a mountain that Fluffy AIMERS have to climb early.
They're staying aggressive. It's not quite going to work, though. Fluffy AIMERS find the opening, find another pick, but we know Fluffy AIMERS, even with a double man advantage, could still get snapped back on at the blink of an eye. And for SSG Academy, they still have a C4 up on the board in the form of JetCon, and they're still staying aggressive in Vil. A lot of damage getting taken to these members. They're going to be forced back to site as Conwall opens up, but another pick for SSG Academy closes the gap by 1 more kill.
The only bad news is for Fluffy AIMERS right now, or not Fluffy AIMERS, SSG Academy right now, is they still have not dealt with JJ. Like you were talking about before we got into the game, JJ loves to play this Monty, and immediately will go right onto that operator. That bulk of an operator just pushing his way forward here, trying to work his way in and push some of these defenders back towards the site itself, and try to just compress them into easy kill spots for the rest of his team. But right now, SSG Academy are just sitting back and waiting. As Fluffy AIMERS start to burn through some of this clock, they're pushing forward towards the site. They don't necessarily know where some of these defenders have gone as they start to work their way back. The only good news for them is they do have the deathmark tracker from the Deimos going out. JJ gets a kill, another one going their way. Poseidon gets one, but Mike W responds. Poseidon now falls. JJ pushing forward onto Mike W, still has that Monty shield that is going to be a huge problem for him in this 1 versus 3. But not only that, he can get the diffuser down, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's got the coverage from Emilio, but it will be Rival outside of the map who ends out this round for Fluffy AIMERS in a much better response there and a much better take overall.
This is exactly what we wanted to see out of both of these teams. We were talking about how they're so close. We were talking about how these teams are just neck and neck with even completely different play styles, completely different, lineups, and how long these teams have been together, as well as whether these teams are an expected 5. But as far as skill, these teams are just absolutely right there with each other. A great round out of SSG Academy is answered back with a perfect response from Fluffy AIMERS. They get those first 2 opening picks once again, but instead of throwing bodies away to utility, to getting a C4 or SSG Academy able to kind of sneak up on them, Fluffy AIMERS clean up the rest of the round and don't lose another body as they go into their execute. They do, but they close it out with 3 people still left alive, and that Monty does absolute wonders for them, as well as the perfect utilization of the Deimos.
10 seconds remaining.
I really love that Resided's been bringing out this Deimos. I feel like that is a really underrated operator when it comes to not only roam clearing, but just putting pressure on a defensive setup, because you can find one of those operators out that might be out on the offsite hold or on a roam in general. You can just put the fear of God into him. You can scare him all the way back to the site, and that really helps not only with your clear as a whole, but with your general time management, as you effectively negate an entire defender on the map. But right now, Fluffy AIMERS back out on the map. Speaking of that, they're working their way up towards the building once again, just kind of doing the early round bucket, getting some drone work going in, starting to take some of that initial map control, and maybe find an opening kill as a result of it. Resided had an opportunity on a Jabates inside of blue, but That Kiva barricade is going to keep him nice and safe for just a little bit longer here as Fluffy AIMERS start to rotate a little bit. Instead, focus on Garage rather than trying to go and hunt down an early kill.
He's just baiting out time in Secret here. At this point, 50 seconds burned. He's getting a little bit more active, though, holding a close off angle on this doorway. And if they don't drone him out, this could potentially spell disaster. It looks like Resided is very aware of this aggressive potential, but Jabates is going to hard clear that corner. Opening pick for SSG Academy, and they're very aware that that corner could be played by Resided. Opening pick goes their way, but an immediate answer for Fluffy AIMERS. 4 versus 4, and SSG Academy is still holding so much space towards the opposite side of the map.
Emilio, such an underrated player for this team, will get yet another one onto Jabates. And now things swing immediately back in the way of Fluffy AIMERS here, as they find themselves once again in a 4v3 with just about half the round to go. The even better news for them is not only do they have the man advantage, they once again have JJ back on the Monty, who can once again just lumber his way forward and put pressure on these defenders still holding the site. They've still got a lot of options to work with. They have a good amount of utility as well. They've got a couple of drones still in their pockets. They've got that shield. They've still got some hard breach as well. So a lot of work that they can still do. Ooh, good find there from Deity, shooting out one of those C4s. That'll make the Monty even more effective, as he can unimpededly walk into the site here and just potentially just get the plant down and put even more pressure on SSG.
The one problem, though, is that they lost their demos, which is something that they used in the very late round to clear off these last anchor players of SSG Academy. When they go to this execute, though, they still have the guns that they need, and they still have the Monty up onto the board. That's going to cause 2 picks. SSG Academy, JetCon, left in a 1 versus 3.
No C4 for JetCon, and he's got that Monty shield to worry about once again. The Monty will unshield, but Emilio will take the matters into his own hand, do JJ's dirty work for him, and there we go. What about that from Fluffy AIMERS? 2 gym defenses, 2 round wins here for the attacking team.
I think it's just Monty utilization, like I was talking about earlier. For Fluffy AIMERS, JJ is just so much better on that operator, and on basement, it is very effective. You can kind of push through a lot of choke points. There's a lot more ability to set up crossfires and set up kind of off angles to make sure that a Monty can't push through a choke point on the basement, as opposed to the upstairs, where it's kind of a little bit easier to either open up con wall and shut off a crossfire, or clear out the positions around the Monty to allow him to take space very freely while also shutting down the C4 plays from below. So going back to this basement for SSG Academy, I think, is really going to be the thing that can show whether they can have some sort of a bounce back against Fluffy AIMERS, because otherwise, like you were talking about, they could just kind of run away with the first few rounds off of a few Monty plays, put SSG Academy in a bad spot going into their attacking side of what's otherwise a defensive-sided map, and really put them on the back foot.
I mean, despite everything that SSG ACAD have done, they haven't really looked like they're in this map. They've had some good setups, sure, they've had some good ideas, they've had some good individual plays from players like Jabates and like Vil. Actually, I believe it was Vocal, actually. Whoever the Vigil was in round 1, I forget off the top of my head. But nonetheless, the Vigil in round 1. It was Vil?
It was Vil.
Okay, that's what I thought. Anyways, Vil in round 1 was really the hero play that saved them and won them around. With that Vigil roam that he had, was really the only thing that Fluffy AIMERS have done wrong to this point. They misdroned one player, and that just threw an entire round out of balance for them. So, if they can just keep that from happening again in this round, I just don't see any reason why Fluffy AIMERS can't take what they did in round 1 and make it even more successful. Because remember, they had a 5 versus 3 before that happened. They were in the driver's seat firmly of that round.
Well, also, at the exact same time that Vil got the pick towards Secret, there was a C4 and a Capcan trap for Jabates, who was playing Capcan at the time. So yes, it was a misdrone of the player of Vil, but also I think the more important problem that Fluffy AIMERS had was not droning out the traps, not droning out those Valkyrie cameras as well. And we see SSG Academy not go onto the Capcan, but go back onto the Valkyrie that had so much incredible impact on the first round. I think that's going to be the real issue for Fluffy AIMERS is, do you drone out those Valcams, and do you shoot them and destroy them, or do you allow them to set up SSG Academy reflank late round. Fluffy Aimers already in the building, just rushing into sight at this point.
Whoa, Deity runs right in, but Focal's there to greet him, but nonetheless, the rest of the team's already in the site. Full arsenal control for Fluffy Aimers here. Godville has to retake, but he will not. Rival will be there to end his reign of terror, but Jabates and Mike W each get a kill, so now it's back into an equal man count. C4 from Jabates shot out of midair, but the SMG-11 gets work done. Now Rival left in a 1-on-2, has a lot of work to do, but still got plenty of time to work with here. That's the good news. The only bad news is he's got two M590s at close range to go against and no diffuser in pocket. So he's got to take these fights here to try to at least get that diffuser back, if not just win the gunfights outright. With 1 minute and 45 seconds or so left, he's going to shoot out a flash. That's his last bit of utility that he has to actually assist with a gunfight. He's got a ping on a player over at box 2, but that's not really a fight that he wants to take because there is another player nearby that can immediately refrag him. He's going to push up here, try to pop a few shots over in the direction of one of these two players. Try if he can't sneak his way up, but no! Mike W just swings out from behind the box and ends out that round for SSG Academy. The most convincing round we've seen from them so far.
But it's another one of those Fluffy Aimers getting the first few picks, getting into sight, and just putting the pressure on SSG Academy. But on the basement, it seems like that's the one site that they're able to bounce back. The problem for SSG ACAD is they're constantly working from a man disadvantage. Fluffy Aimers, time after time on their attacking half, we're looking at the statistics, it looked like they were a very defensive-sided team, but on this attack, they've been so proficient at finding the opening pick, and for SSG Academy, it's always a question of whether you can fight back, not a question of whether you can close out.
Well, so far, the killing potential of both these two teams has been very much evident. We promised a good match, and so far, we are getting it. Amelia all the way up on 6 kills already. He's been really that X factor for Fluffy Aimers to this point, playing multiple different operators to this point, but he's been really favoring this ace, and it makes a lot of sense on a map like Clubhouse. You bring out this ace on so many different occasions because it gives you a lot of flexibility with your hard breach. You can use it to sure open up hatches, but you can also use it on a variety of different walls. On a site like CCTV, you're likely going to see the ace open up something like the con single wall, maybe the inside con single wall, maybe even rafters as well. They aren't bringing any hard breach charges or anything really to clear out rafters, however, so I wouldn't really be too surprised if this ends up being more of a master side take and a con focus attack from Fluffy Aimers. That seems to be the initial play. However, you at least have to put some pressure onto Garage. And how about that for pressure? JetCon falls first, so that's Wamai off the board.
JetCon gets droned out and just does not move at all. Somehow not expecting to get hard cleared and get pre-fired, but for Fluffy Aimers, once again, they're able to find the opening pick. Once again, they're able to find another down. That's Rafters window. Jabates just holding, and that's the second. The top frag of SSG Academy now completely denied based off of a drone, based off of a Twitch drone. He just gets shocked to death. What is going on for SSG ACAD?
I'll tell you what's going on. They're just getting out manhandled right now by these two teams. Oh, Godville puts recited in the grave. And that puts things a little bit more manageable for SSG ACAD, but Deity says no and tries to just walk right in. He'll get a kill on the outskirts of the map, but still being denied initially. JJ, however, has walked into Rafters and will start to get this plant down. Focal might have just the nick of time to get his way in here, but it will be Vil to kill Deity next. So now a 2 versus 3 here. SSG ACAD still managing to hold on to this round in somewhat of a fashion. Focal has been allowed to actually walk his way back up red stairs here. So this is definitely doable here for the defense, but still a lot of time to work with for the attack, and it's going to be even harder if they let JJ get this plant down.
But opening up, they're going for the retake a little bit earlier, or at least posturing an aggressive position. The rappel on Plat is going to find one, and it's going to find Focal at 6 HP, and JJ with a pistol out and a shield on his chest is going to find the round-ending kill for Fluffy Aimers. SSG ACAD aren't able to win any round, any site other than basement, and Fluffy Aimers are just, like you said, manhandling them right now.
I'm just going to say it right now. Fluffy Aimers are showing us exactly why they have nearly a 70% attacking win rate. They look so good on these attacks. I'm telling you, Irish, the way that they coordinate these plays, the way that they spot these gaps that SSG Academy are giving them, the way they sniff out these aggressive plays that are ill-timed, it's honestly as close to perfection as you can get. Now, sure, they've let a couple rounds slip away from them, but it's mostly due to the fact that SSG Academy are having these one-off hero plays from players like Jabates, more so than the fact that Fluffy Aimers are getting out strategied. Strategied? I think strategied, but I digress. Grammar's fun. I think the big thing that SSG Academy need to do in this last round to at least get themselves to a 3-3 is not play into what Fluffy Aimers are trying to get them to play into, which is the fact that Fluffy Aimers are counting on them to be really solo, to be really aggressive, and it allows Fluffy Aimers to take those one-off gunfights to put themselves in a really heavy man advantage.
Actually, what's interesting is that Fluffy Aimers on their attacking side only have a 44% win rate throughout XGS. This is their by far least favorite side, and you really wouldn't know it because they're making quick work of opposite side, making quick work of that wall, and already looking to get the Monty into position. And SSG Academy, strong attacking and defensive win rates, kind of just look a little toothless on anything other than the basement side, and I think a big problem for them is working with an info disadvantage where there's a kind of space and an ability in their operator lineup in basement to bring the Valkyrie, and they've chosen to not pick onto it for every other site on this map.
That's really the bad news about that ban phase, was the fact that they only got to choose between banning either the Monty or the Doke, and they viewed the Doke as the bigger problem. Right now, that might not have been the case, as JJ's been an absolute monster with this Monty, forcing these defenders back and giving intel to his team. And right now, Fluffy Aimers are once again making great time with everything. They've already got the jacuzzi breach open. They've dealt with the bathroom mirror window. They've also even started to work their way in from the CCTV side. They've got really everything going for them. The only thing really stopping them right now is Mike W inside of Cash. And with the hard breach that they've still got available, or not there any hard breach, they've actually used it all. I'm not sure on what, but they still have plenty of opportunities to actually get their way into the building and try to find these offsite players.
But it's a minute and 20, and all that they've done is open up walls at this point. Fluffy Aimers need to start transitioning this into a side take, need to start transitioning this into, an opposite side take and taking some sort of space. They're going to be incredibly aware of the top red stairs, and Mike W is going to be the opening death for SSG Academy. Time after time, Fluffy Aimers able to find that opening kill. Will SSG Academy be able to fight back? Be able to get kill after kill, maybe a possible C4 through the floors. They have 3 on the board at this point, but they need to find an answer back. They need to maybe delay out time and find some sort of way to stop the train that is coming towards site.
It's pretty much do or die here for SSG Academy in this map specifically. And they've let JJ just walk right in here. He's going to walk his way into gym and start to get this plant down. SSG Academy are none the wiser about it. The C4 is going to go out. Recited gets another kill. Jabates will kill one more, but Deity as well, keeping his team heavily in the favored side and man advantage as well. Now Vil left all alone in a 1v4 will jump outside and kill Recited. Now 1v3. Hang on, how did he get away with downing the Monty there? Now 1v2, and suddenly this seems much more manageable here for Godville. The only bad news is he's only got 12 HP to work with, and he's running low on time. Seems that Fluffy Aimers might have walked all the way back. In fact, one player on the roof, one player all the way over in CCTV. As he's nearing the point of no return, he will just have to stick the plan, and Rival will easily get the last kill of that round. Fluffy Aimers with a monstrous first half here.
Yeah, Fluffy Aimers 4-2 on their attack, not able to win basement, but that's their only problem. If they win every other site and win every other site convincingly, getting opening pick every single round on their attacking side, and just able to transition that man advantage into a site hit time after time, even after time that is kind of keeps draining off the clock, because it was a minute and 20 in that round and they hadn't found their way into the building. But when it comes down to it, JJ on the Monty is able to take space so quickly, so effectively, and the rest of Fluffy Aimers is just activated around him. He's sitting at 3-3, but the rest of his team are sitting at 5 to 7 kills, just dead even across the board, playing off of him.
Yeah, not only that, but just in general, SSG Academy, their guns aren't nearly as active as Fluffy Aimers are right now. Vocal 2 kills, Jetcon 1 kill, Mike W negative. Really, it's been just Vil and Jabates that have been keeping them in a lot of these rounds. SSG Academy now onto their arguably more favorable side. Like we talked about, they had a really good attacking percentage, but as well, Fluffy AIMERS on their more favored side. I would honestly not be shocked if, like we talked about, came to fruition. Fluffy AIMERS just build off that first half momentum and start to run away with things. Right now, they're playing very aggressive upstairs, kind of a throwback to more of that old school 2020 style run where you bring the castle for the mid floor, you have players off, roaming, trying to get some early aggression and stall some time. That seems to be mostly Rival's job, however, as he's all the way open side of stock, trying to take some early fights and really put the pressure onto SSG Academy.
I love the ops that SSG Academy have chosen to bring out. But the opening pick is going to go towards SSG, or is going to go towards Fluffy AIMERS once again. Even on their defensive side, they're able to find openings. Traded back as Rival hits the deck, but honestly at this point, getting that IQ off the board, that's 2 nades able to clear off a lot of utility. It's the ability to see where the Solos is playing if she was still alive, but see where all the utility is. I think that's a huge opening pick for Fluffy AIMERS, and even though you lose your Solus and your ability to play for kind of late round knowing where the plant is, that opening death for SSG Academy hits so hard.
Oversighted on the top floor here, spots the gun barrel of, I believe, JetCon. He might be able to get this kill. He does a lot of damage, but no kill. That might be a crucial miss there from Fluffy AIMERS, as it means that they're going to be able to get away scot-free. JetCon as well, and Focal each get kills, and that's the top floor player dead. Now SSG Academy heavily in the lead in this round, with just under half of it to go. Emilio and JJ have a lot of work cut out for them as they've fallen back towards the site. Even bigger problem now for Fluffy AIMERS is going to be that death mark tracker going out, as it effectively negates Emilio's pressure and presence on the site. They know exactly where he is, and they just need to start to put the pain onto JJ here inside of Arsenal. And if they can do that and isolate these two 1v1s, they'll be looking really good to close out this round.
It's just JJ and Emilio sitting on site. With SSG Academy, they have a minute left to set up their man execute, knowing that the last 2 members of Fluffy AIMERS are on site. So you have, again, 50 seconds at this point to just set up crossfire, set up gunfights, and one is already going towards the way of SSG Academy. A kill coming in for Emilio, but an immediate trade for SSG. They're playing off of each other. They're playing the clear absolutely clinically. And even after losing man advantage, even after losing the opening pick to Fluffy AIMERS, SSG ACAD are able to fight back on their attack so much better than on their defense.
Already, SSG ACAD doing what Fluffy AIMERS could not, winning an Arsenal attack. And it was pretty convincing, quite honestly. Fluffy AIMERS went with a much different defensive style from what SSG ACAD was doing. Sure, the principal early round was still there, where SSG ACAD roamed a little bit in the early round, but it was more focused over towards the blue half of the map. Rather so, Fluffy AIMERS chose to focus their efforts towards bar, and it didn't go very well for them at all. They had players up above, they had players on the mid floor inside of bar, and they stuck around just a little bit too long, especially after they started to lose bodies. It meant that SSG ACAD, as they started to gain the man advantage, were able to isolate those offsite 1v1s, and then it put JJ and Emilio in a terrible spot. Because while they were isolating those 1v1s, SSG ACAD were busy setting themselves up for an execute. They were able to do that without pitch. And in general, it just looked way better than the SSG Academy we saw on defense.
Fluffy AIMERS setting up for an almost entirely opposite side take. There was a moment there during the tail end of prep phase where all 5 members of all 5 members of Fluffy AIMERS were setting up utility on the opposite side of the map, and SSG Academy are playing directly into Fluffy AIMERS positioning.
Right now, SSG Academy doing what you would expect them to do, setting themselves up really nicely to prepare to open up some of these off-site walls, like platform wall that Mike W will go ahead and pop wide open. Not only that, they're also going to start to work their way in towards garage. And in fact, Jabates has already worked his way up towards CCTV, spots a player at the top of the red, and will start to chuck some utility his way to try and force him back. I believe that player will have to stick around at least inside of cash, as it will be still relatively safe due to the fact that SSG Academy haven't really pushed their way into the building besides that garage spot. So they've still got a lot of work to do, and they've already burned through a minute. But not only that, they also have players down below to worry about, as JJ's inside of kitchen and will now jump all the way to the basement and could potentially hit a late flank.
Yeah, Fluffy AIMERS had a problem last round of kind of throwing their bodies into gunfights against SSG Academy, but for this round, they seem so incredibly aware and just very able to drop back and not give SSG Academy any ability to find any sort of picks towards them. A minute and a half into the round, and Fluffy Aimers have found their way into the building, but they've had to destroy so many barricades. They've had to clear so much utility towards this top red position. And Fluffy Aimers haven't taken any damage. At a minute and 20 now, they're starting to look to get aggressive and find that opening pick, and it's going to go towards them. Deity finding it onto JetCon. So for Fluffy Aimers, man advantage, a minute and 10, and SSG Academy with absolutely nothing to show besides con control.
Oh, another one going Fluffy Aimers' way is JJ down below. I mentioned that he could potentially go for a late flank, and while it won't necessarily be entirely true, he still gets a kill anyways. Now 5 versus 3 for Fluffy Aimers here, looking to hold on for just this last minute or so. Still will work his way into Logi. Focal as well will work his way up. Everybody from SSG Academy positioned right outside of the site. But Fluffy Aimers have positioned themselves very deep inside of the site to not give anything away for free. Not only that, they're also playing very close together to go for a quick refrag if one of them should fall. SSG Academy here are running out of time. They're just going to have to commit to this and go for a potential run-in, but Deity is just holding them at the doorstep. Another kill goes his way, and yet another one for Emilio, as now it's all Mike W left in a 1v3 now, as he will kill Rival, but low HP once again and low time means that surely this round should go the way of Fluffy Aimers. It's only a matter of formalities at this point, and Emilio will get that final kill to pad his stats. Fluffy Aimers now regain a little bit more of that lead.
Lots of people talk about them being an aggressive team and trying to kind of throw a gunfight your way at any given opportunity. Even JJ himself kind of saying things like, yeah, the way that I play, if I don't know what I'm doing, you definitely don't know what I'm doing. But in that round, they showed so much discipline. Instead of throwing their bodies away, instead of kind of giving SSG Academy picks and giving them so much ability to just kind of steamroll kill after kill after kill like we saw in the previous round, Fluffy Aimers played back and only Recited lost his life to Highway for SSG Academy, which is a little bit of a misstep. But that was the only misstep that Fluffy Aimers made throughout the entirety of that round. They played opposite side, but they dropped off very early. As soon as the shield was cleared for the Azami, she just dropped directly off towards the mid floor, ran back to site, and played with the rest of their teammates. So for Fluffy Aimers, you've shown that you're fantastic at taking gunfights and playing off each other, and you've also shown a lot of discipline in this last round. It's going to be on the shoulders of SSG ACAD to really fight back time after time and put a hole into what we've seen is very, very thick armor for Fluffy Aimers.
I think in general, right now, Fluffy Aimers have way more structure than SSG ACAD do. I think with having to play with Mike W, who's new to the roster, and then of course, JetCon coming back onto the team now for just a limited short amount of time, they're not necessarily as comfortable playing with this certain 5-man roster. Meanwhile, you've had this Fluffy Aimers team who have been playing all 5 together for the last couple of weeks, building that chemistry, building that structure in JJ's image, and they are all listening to him. They're doing what he wants them to do, and right now it's working out really well. They're able to play off of him on attack as the Monty. They're able to listen to his shot calling on defense, fall back when they need to, take those aggressive fights when they need to. And in general, just every single thing that they want to do right now is working. We've seen them play aggressive, like you were saying. We've seen them just sit back and wait, like you were saying, which is great patience from them so far. And it's really that big gap between these two teams that Fluffy Aimers are able to capitalize on.
I think that's a great point, that for Fluffy Aimers, we really see that when they're winning rounds, they're winning it together. When they're making mistakes and when they're doing misplays, even that is played together. We saw on the first round of their defensive side, the real problem was that on their roam, on their kind of third floor roam, instead of playing for time, they were giving away gunfights, but it was the entirety of the team. That was the game plan. It just wasn't the right game plan. So for Fluffy Aimers, when they decide to snap their fingers and call, hey, you know what? Let's play more passively this round. Everyone plays more passively. Recited is the only one to lose his body towards sight, but he's the newest addition to this Fluffy Aimers roster, and he hasn't had a ton of kind of game day reps to really make those adaptations and play around his teammates. So for him, that would be the most excusable player to kind of make a small misstep like that, but the rest of the team is just in lockstep with each other.
I would imagine for this next round, we go back to Church and Arsenal for the defensive hold. In general, I feel like looking back at that first round that Fluffy Gamers were on defense, I talked about it a moment ago, but I want to talk about it again. I think in general they overstayed their welcome on the rope. Had a little bit of a struggle with the opening round where they got spotted out a little bit too early on, but then they just decided to double down on it. They stuck around on the top floor like we saw. They stuck around on the mid floor, and they didn't necessarily fall back when they needed to. They didn't necessarily have the strongest sight hold itself. I feel like the big key for Fluffy Gamers heading back to the basement is going to be timing. How effectively can you time when to stay, when to fall back, and when to take a fight necessarily on the roam that you might not have to take if you can successfully get away? Because that's another big thing to point out is risk versus reward. If you take that opening fight with a player out on the roam, what are the odds that you're going to win it? And if you do win it, how much longer do you stick around after that? And if you lose it, how bad is that going to hurt your team's potential chances at holding the site?
Given this operator lineup, I honestly don't even think they're going to go for the roam on this site. We see almost every single one of these operators is just geared towards holding site. So you talked about it. The first round that they played on the basement site, the roam was kind of a little bit flimsy because they just kind of threw their bodies on the roam, played a little bit too aggressively for picks, and the site hold wasn't all that great because you lost bodies towards the roam, but also the individual operators towards site weren't super strong for the hold. You fix both problems, 2 birds, 1 stone if you just hold and bunker in towards site. So for Fluffy Aimers, you put Rival back on a... oh, nope, I was thinking that was Deity on the Warden. I just saw Warden on Fluffy Aimers and was expecting it to be Deity. Never mind. But it's a strong operator for the whole team regardless, and JJ on the Maestro is going to give them so much info towards the plant and towards the late round if they go for smoke execute.
The only real big problem here is look at the lineup from SSG Academy. They've got that Bravo, which could potentially be a huge problem. If Fluffy Aimers aren't watching their evil eyes, that could really turn the tide against them heavily. I believe they might have just gotten one with a grenade from Jabates. Ooh, wait, I missed there at the bottom of main stairs. Yeah, and indeed, the evil eye is still alive, so Emilio still has some good amount of information to play off, and now he knows that already there's a player at the bottom of main stairs. SSG Academy tried to get aggressive early on, and the idea was great because nobody was watching main, but now you've given away your position and you've kind of trapped that player at the bottom of main stairs, making him pretty ineffective, this kitchen player.
And the one problem with a hard bunker for Fluffy Aimers is that SSG Academy, with 2 minutes on the clock, have the entirety of the rest of the map. And with operators like Ram, with operators like the Brava that you were talking about, they can just work this vert, clear off the util for Fluffy Aimers, and that strong bunker becomes so much weaker when SSG Academy have 2 minutes to work it.
That Maestro peaking the IQ a minute ago was not necessarily the best play there for Fluffy Aimers. You lose that main site presence. Sure, you still do have Deity on the smoke, but there's a lot of ground that smoke is going to have to cover with those toxic babes, and there's still a lot of time as well. That smoke will not be nearly as effective by itself as if you had those evil eyes up. As we enter the final minute here, SSG Academy are setting themselves up heavily for a kitchen execute. They look to potentially drop their way in here, but they don't necessarily have the best coverage to this point. They haven't really worked anything besides the kitchen angle, and I don't even believe they have Moto open yet either, so they still need that one extra little avenue to give themselves a bit more leeway to work their way into the site. They have popped the mirror window, so that's going to make it a little bit easier for them to work their way in. And now Emilio will fall to Vil. Another player potentially taking a fight at the bottom of the main stairs. A C4 goes out. Jabates at the last second shoots it out, but will cost his life in the end as Rival with another one. But Vil has just walked his way into the site. Will get 1 kill, but no more than that. Poseidon now left all alone deep on the AK's rack, has a lot of work to do with 20 seconds to go. The diffuser will be going down for Mike W here, and that's going to put him in a post-plant scenario. Poseidon runs right past a player, but JetCon as well has a good cover from his team up on the kitchen hatch, and SSG Academy stave off match point.
It might be something that isn't quite super flashy and isn't the kind of quick play that you're expecting to really be the win condition for the round, but for SSG Academy, their drone work in the early round was fantastic, so they're able to take so much space, even though Fluffy Aimers weren't playing for it. Sometimes, if you have a team that's kind of playing towards a bunker basement site, the attacking team takes so much time droning out every single corner thinking, they're not just giving us this space, they're going to be playing somebody in a wrap position. But for SSG Academy, they take space super quickly, and they work the vert to absolute perfection, because for Fluffy Aimers, their bunker setup was almost entirely to deny the kitchen drop, to deny the kind of basic site take of SSG Academy, but SSG Academy weren't going for that. They worked main stairs, they worked the vert, got one pick of somebody over-aggressing, of JJ over-aggressing on that mirror window towards bottom main stairs, and the rest of the kills just come in an absolute flurry for Fluffy Aimers as they're able to take Moto with absolutely zero people contesting them, clear off the mirror, get so much pressure towards that main hall, and for Fluffy Aimers, when push comes to shove, they have the entirety of Church with the rest of SSG Academy just stacked up towards Arsenal. SSG Academy now forced to attack not onto basement, and onto this gym side with Fluffy Aimers showing a strong opposite side hole.
Hey, Irish, you want to know something funny?
What?
Every round that SSG Academy have won has been on Arsenal. They can only win Arsenal right now. Fluffy Aimers can't win Arsenal, and SSG Academy cannot win anything but Arsenal. So, if we're going off that high-level statistic, Fluffy Aimers should win this round here because we're on CCTV. That's a good start. They forced the mirror window to be caught, but it means with this mirror window, they're not going to be able to very easily open up this main wall, and they'll lose a body early on because of it. Recited over at the top of Raptors will kill Mike W, and that's a big loss. That's your primary hard-breaching option with the Maverick now in the grave before he can get any work done. And not only that, they've kind of isolated this Monty player. JetCon at the bottom of Garage has a lot of work to do, and he's being pressured from all different angles. Emilio with another kill. The Monty's just been allowed to push up. He just kills Emilio outright. JetCon now equalizes the man count in a 3-on-3. This fast-paced take from SSG Academy has seemingly caught Fluffy Aimers off guard to an extent, and they've got full Garage control because of it.
They had a crossfire set up towards that basement, sorry, towards that opening of Garage door. But but SSG Academy are able to work it to absolute perfection. They're able to burn those Wamai discs and just toss in grenade asphyxiation bolts, and Fluffy Aimers are forced either into gunfights directly into a Monty or forced to sit in the same spot with a grenade at their feet. So for SSG Academy, it's a 3 versus 3, but they have that rafter position. The one thing that they really need to do is get this wall open before they go into an execute.
Well, they have opened up a way to the default plant, but they can't really go for that just yet. There's a C4 they've got to worry about. There's a couple Toxic Babes still in the pocket of Fluffy Aimers, and those Toxic Babes will start to go out here. I don't know if they're going to kill JetCon fast enough. However, Deity will get a kill. No! The Toxic Babe at the last second kills the planter, and JJ throws a C4, ending out the round for Fluffy Aimers. They get match point!
JetCon, why do you stick that? I know it's that, like, sometimes the, oh shoot, I can get this down, the smoke was too late instinct is so strong, but at that point, even if you do stick bomb, you lose your Monty, you lose a lot of your post plant, and then what are you doing? You're stuck with a post plant from Rafters and out towards Plat with an open mirror window and not able to sit on Plat repel. Even if he does stick plant there, it's such a weak post plant, so the decision for JetCon to stick plant there is very puzzling. Your statistic proves true, though, and SSG Academy not able to win anything other than basement. Fluffy Aimers sit at match point after a very hectic defense.
One final chance here, essentially, for Fluffy Aimers to close this thing out. SSG Academy got to go perfect here in these last 2 rounds to get themselves to overtime. Remember, Fluffy Aimers could potentially jump Space Station Academy in the standings after this matchup. Because right now, SSG Academy sits at 9, Fluffy Aimers sits at 6. Ooh, this could be
if they win here, then that's a 3-round difference, and yeah, that's -3 for SSG Academy, +3 for Fluffy Aimers, and yeah, they're sitting at 2nd.
Ooh, potentially big round here. Did you see JJ over on the roam? Not only that, there's a spawn peek from Deity. Really aggressive stuff from Fluffy Aimers here early on. Deity decides to back off at the last possible second and keep himself alive. But Recited as well, going for another potential run out and a potential spawn peek. Fluffy Aimers are taking the fight to the attack right now. And it seemingly has kind of halted this progression from SSG Academy. They're all still outside. They're not really doing any drone work. And while sure they're opening up some walls, they can't really do anything with that if they don't have the intel to potentially walk into the building.
One thing that I really like about Fluffy Aimers is that you'll see them in these kind of super important rounds where if they win this, yeah, they jump directly up to 2nd. This is an incredibly important round for standings, and also as far as being able to close out a game early without giving SSG Academy an ability to get back into this game. But even with such an incredible round, they're still kind of just running around doing their own thing. And SSG Academy are first to hold cutoffs, almost finding a pick towards Recited. 2 players of Fluffy Aimers on low HP, but they're able to slither back towards site. And Fluffy Aimers, the aggression is working because they're delaying out time and they haven't lost any bodies to SSG Academy.
I have no idea how Recited got away with his life there. Mike W should be kicking himself for letting him get away there. Now, JetCon will end JJ's life in this round. So now man advantage for SSG Academy with half the round to go. And not only that, like you see, they have done some good damage to other players on Fluffy Aimers as well. Also started to push their way towards the site itself. Focal nearly finds a kill inside of Jim, but Emilio keeps things manageable here. With Fluffy Aimers, he gets a second one inside of Logi, maybe a third on the rappel, but no, he's not ready for Vil to walk up behind him. And now it's a 1-on-3 for Deity to try and give his team the win here. SSG Academy looking to potentially walk their way into the building here and get this plant down, and that's exactly what they will do. Mike W looking to stick it here as he potentially spot the head of the Thermite. He does not, but no! Potentially at the last second could have found a kill, but Focal outside past his teammates' cover, and SSG Academy are not done yet.
And such an important round for them, not even just for mentality, not even just for standings, but it staves off the win for Fluffy Aimers. And one more round between SSG Academy and Fluffy Aimers. One more round for SSG ACAD to get to that all-important overtime and push it forward against Fluffy Aimers.
Attackers need to
At this point, it really has to favor SSG Academy here. We've only seen 4 defensive rounds won on this whole entire game so far. And all but, well, actually, it's been kind of mixed results. I was going to say all but one of them have been on the basement, but I remembered my own saying from last round where Fluffy Aimers have not won a basement defense just yet. We've seen 2 defensive site wins for SSG Academy. Those were the only 2 defenses they won. And then we saw a gym defense and a CCTV defense for Fluffy Aimers here. I'm surprised they didn't go back to gym because they've proven they have more success there. They have lost this site twice now, and they haven't really looked that comfortable on it overall. They tried a heavy roam, which didn't work very well. They tried to be out on that roam and take gunfights. They got punished for that. They tried to sit inside of site and just wait, and then they gave up too much control too early on for SSG Academy, and SSG Academy were able to capitalize off of that quickly and set themselves up for a really nice execute, I must say. So if you're Fluffy Aimers, what do you do here?
You bring the castle, and you play a lot more standard of an operator lineup for a play like this. Instead of playing aggressively and instead of playing kind of a slippery, gunfight-heavy version of the SSG roam, just kind of do what works for the SSG roam. Play your guns, force them into lanes with the castle barriers, and try to play a little bit more passively so you don't lose your life and don't lose any bodies. 40 seconds into the round, and SSG Academy are so tentative at taking space, but at this point they've gotten one of those castle barriers open, positioning towards this roaming member on bar, and setting up a pinch for an opening gunfight.
Things are not going very well for SSG, or for Fluffy Aimers up to this point. They've let the Monty walk all the way into the top of main stairs, nearly gives away his life, does Rival, and indeed he will to Mike W out on the rappel. So if they can get that confirm on the down, opening pick going the way of Fluffy Aimers here, and losing that main stairs presence is a huge loss for the defense because it leaves a big gap of potentially that they can run down in main stairs. But Amelia with another kill back, equalize the man count at 4v4. Emilio and Recited as well will fall their way back down to the hatch. So all 4 remaining members for Fluffy Aimers have safely made it back. But not for much longer, as Recited has decided to challenge his way back up. Do SSG Academy know about this? It doesn't seem like they do to this point, as they've completely pivoted towards Kitchen.
And impact tricks are perfect for JJ as well, delaying out just a little bit more time. And that little bit more time is so important for a player like Recited, because he just keeps cycling between taking space towards lounge, taking space towards blue, and dropping down the hatch, saying, I'm here, and then dropping back. So at this point, it's all about delaying time. It's all about forcing SSG Academy into an unfavorable execute. Because time after time, Fluffy Aimers have not been able to win on this basement just in 50-50 gunfights.
The good news is they do currently have the HP advantage. Mike W still on low HP as he's been for most of this round. singular stray bullet will put him in the grave for the remainder of this game. And it will be JJ to kill Jabate, so things looking even better for Fluffy AIMERS here now as we start to hit the dire moments of this round. Things looking really good for Fluffy AIMERS here, but the Monty has been allowed to walk right in. Focal will get one, but Deity will claim a kill before he's sent to the grave. Now it's going to rest even more on Focal. He's now dead. Emilio with another kill on box 1. And he leaves a low HP Habana all alone. Emilio with another one to end out the game. Fluffy AIMERS will take it. It took all 12, but it's a 7-5 victory for the Fluffy team.
That's what I'm talking about for Fluffy AIMERS. Being on this team, being right next to JJ, you just get an absolute power-up and a boost. Emilio with an absolutely incredible 3K. He's top of the leaderboard, not quite top in skills because somebody else. Sorry, I thought that was Vil, but no, that could not be true. But anyways, had a fantastic game all by himself. And the rest of the team just absolutely coming together. When they're making mistakes, they're making mistakes together. But when they're winning rounds, they're doing plays like that and playing off each other absolutely perfectly.
I'm just going to say it. This Fluffy AIMERS team looks scary, man. They really do. When they're on point, when they're clicking, they are clicking. Let me tell you. Just look at that last game as a whole. So many of those rounds, they were in the driver's seat. They had the man advantage. They had the intel, like you were talking about. There was that big intel gap for so much of that game that was in favor of Fluffy AIMERS. Really, the only time that Fluffy AIMERS have stumbled in this season was a 7-5 loss yesterday to Makers, and that's Makers. So even putting 5 rounds up against them is a great feat on its own. Just looking at them, I see them going really far.
Yeah, no, like you were talking about, the one kind of misstep that they had is against, I'm gonna say it, and I don't think it's that much of a hot take, the strongest team in XGS. So yeah, like getting 5 rounds against them is absolutely incredible. So for Fluffy AIMERS, you did great. I don't think that they quite did well enough to push them all the way up to that second place position, but they've gotten close enough and shown a lot of strength against these upper level teams that I'd be surprised if we didn't see them very, very soon punch their ticket to the towards the playoffs.
Well, Irish, that is it for game number 1. We've got a break up for you, but when we come back, game number 2 of XGS Playday number 7 will be right on deck. See you after the break.